Yes, when we describe Nigeria as a criminal enterprise, it is because Nigeria's constitution is a fraud, a forgery. And for us to see the depth of the fraud, every side of what governs the Nigerian society, there is something that is the opposite of what you thought it was. The framers of the constitution were very clear in their mind what they wanted. But on the front end, they will say something. And at the back end, they will put exactly what they want. And so when you see the front end, you will think that there's some kind of accountability that will be guaranteed. They knew what they were doing. We have come now to take one of the many items in which you were sure of what you thought it was, but it is the exact opposite. Whether it is appropriation, who can go to take money from the treasury, or the accountability of it, who has to approve, or even the question of owing any obligation. But the one that has become an emergency to, zoom in on is the question of educational requirement for holding public office in Nigeria. Many times we've gone to town halls where we raised the question, who knows what the requirement is? Everybody was sure they knew, school certificate. But Ninas is saying today, because of the international embarrassment that has come from the desperate attempt by those who want to hold public office to demonstrate certificate, Ninas is telling you today that in Nigeria, under this constitution, there is no requirement, educational requirement to hold any office at all. Everything you knew before is a lie. And the illiterate lawyers, including senior advocates and professors of law, who have been extorting money from politicians since 1999 on account of trying to make up, including this desperation that has led to this Chicago makeup dance. It was in that illiteracy of thinking that there's a requirement of any kind of qualification at all. Why do we say so? The Constitution of Nigeria 1999, this fraud, as section 318, defines the terms, most of the terms used in the Constitution, so that they can put a specific meaning to it. And so school certificate is one of the terms so described in the Constitution, so that you don't travel outside the Constitution in search of the meaning of school certificate. And the school certificate, I'm going to read it word for word for how it was described here, so that you can see why you do not require any kind of educational qualification to hold any kind of office in Nigeria. And the people that put school certificate as requirement, they are the same ones who crafted this definition. So that while you are laboring to go and forge certificate, they just laugh at you and carry on with what they are doing. And you're going to see exactly who has done what under this. School certificate, I'm reading now. School certificate or its equivalent means a secondary school certificate or its equivalent, or grade 2 teacher certificate, the city and girls certificate, or that is the first definition, the first description of what school certificate is under this constitution. It is under 4 headings. I've just read the A, the one you know. WASC, city and girls, teachers grade 2. That's A. We have A, B, C, D in the alternative. If you don't have this, then go for B. If you don't have B, come down to C. If you don't have C, get down to D. So the A is secondary school certificate or its equivalent, teachers grade 2, city and girls certificate. Or B, that's in the absence of that, B, education up to secondary school certificate level. Or what that means in B is if you have evidence of having been enrolled in any school that could have presented you for school certificate. Whether you dropped out in class 1 or class 2 or class 3, that is what it means. That you entered that school and you can show that in 1974 I was in Hope Rising Secondary School. It doesn't matter what grade, it doesn't matter whether you wrote the exam at all or not, or you wrote and got F9 all through. No, just evidence of being there is that B. You qualify under this constitution. That's not the word. It says or C, primary 6 living certificate or its equivalent, and 1 service in public or private sector in the federation in any capacity acceptable to the Independent National Electoral Commission for a minimum of 10 years. Attendance of courses, that is, if you have primary 6 service, and that is, you have to bring evidence of having worked for at least 10 years, private or public. Public can be federal or state or local government. Private can be in a restaurant or mama put on the highway to Okene. Just make an affidavit to say, yes, I have primary 6, but since I left, I have worked in XYZ. If it comes to 10 years altogether, you qualify, provided you also, that is, you can also show attendance of courses, and training in any kind of institution acceptable to INEC. That is, these are now the kind of things you need to patch up your primary 6 with. And this was exactly what the ability to read and write in English and communicate to the satisfaction of INEC. These are all the things you can now attach to your primary 6. This was exactly what Masari, that was speaker, Aminu Masari, that was speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives, it was primary 6 he filed when he was contesting. And so when people who knew he did not attain school certificate, the people who knew him knew that he didn't go to secondary school. And so they thought school certificate was, so they made an issue of it. And he came to court with the primary 6 he filed because the constitution recognized it as a school certificate with evidence of all the courses he had attended. INEC is the one to decide that one, that you attended a 2-hour course, or that you have worked for some place for any length of time you put on your affidavit is what it is. It's between you and INEC at the point of submission. So Masari, who later became governor of Katsina State after being speaker of House of Representatives, he has only school certificate of primary 6. Then D, any other qualification acceptable by Independent National Electoral Commission. That stands by itself. Now, what that means is that you don't have the school certificate of WASC. You don't have evidence of going to any secondary school. You don't have even primary 6. But somehow, you manage to put your name on the form of INEC as candidate. Anyhow you manage to do it. Responsibility departs from you for any wrongdoing. If INEC placed you on the ballot, nobody can defeat your candidacy or your victory in the election on account of qualification, educational qualification, because there's a presumption of law in your favor that INEC that accepted you was satisfied, and nobody can come to, even if anybody finds anything wrong, it is INEC. The responsibility begins and ends with INEC. It's only INEC that you can go and punish for accepting the man that was not qualified. Where does that leave all of us? Under the Unitary Constitution of Nigeria, 1999, no educational requirement to hold any public office, because the school certificate that was put as requirement was defined in such a manner that removes every kind of requirement to go to any school. It's just, has INEC accepted you? if INEC accepts you, that is the end of the discussion under this constitution. And so all these people who have been going about forging certificates is just the dishonesty and the illiteracy of the lawyers who have been parading themselves around those candidates to make money. There's no other thing. If any lawyer says it is otherwise, whether a senior advocate or professor of law, bring him so that we can disgrace him on national television. They are the ones that have kept us in this chains we are in. There's no requirement, any educational. The reason we are these things have been printed here since 1999. The reason we are bringing it this public at this time is because the last election that will happen under this constitution has happened, and it has ended in fiasco, like we have seen, the 2023 round. We are doing this because, not because we want to help those who do not have any qualifications at all. We are doing it so that we can all see that our country is a scam under this constitution. I could cite up to 20 different examples of what you thought you knew, but which is the opposite when you open the books. When Olisa Abakoba went to court with some people to say, because Buhari was appointing people from his community in all the important posts, therefore he had departed from the constitutional provision for federal character and all of that, and they went to court. Whereas section 6, section 6 section 6 subsection 6c of the constitution renders non-justiciable, that is, nullifies the chapter 2 that has that provision for equity and federal character. The courts have no jurisdiction to listen to your complaint if anything listed in chapter 2 is not happening. So the people who are making case of federal character, oh, they've not given our people minister, they're talking trash. You understand? So there are so many things like that. The appropriation that you thought that the president must get permission from the National Assembly, he does. The section 81 says he has to get permission. Section 82 says while they are debating, he is at liberty to spend running government. Section 121 gives the same thing to the governors. He should go to state assembly. But while they are debating, in section 122, he is at liberty to say, spend money running government, subject to certain dubious provisions, dubious limits that they can determine by themselves. That's why they use Ghana must go to process it. So that's what we are living with. Then there's section 308 that gives them immunity. At what point are you going to get anything from them? They don't owe you any obligation at all. They have the spare key to the treasury, and they are not accountable to you in the immunity that's granted them in section 308. Even if you see them burning the money or spraying it. Which of them is in prison now? But the monies that were taken from the states are standing as skyscrapers in Ikoyi, in Lagos, Victoria Island. Go and look behind and see who owns all the tall buildings you see off Caseway Road. The sitting governors building 20-story structures. So that's the kind of thing where the constitution, Nigeria is a scam under this fraud. All the things you thought were one way are actually the opposite way. If you refuse to listen, you will be a victim of that fraud. But the lawyers in the land, more than anybody else, are the ones sustaining this fraud. Then when the elections happen, you see them, you saw their numbers in Abuja. The number of them that came to defend the indefensible. EFCC will soon begin to parade those they said so money. Again, those same set of lawyers, senior advocate, professor, they will all gather. EFCC. It is that money they make that is the reason they don't want to join in this campaign to pull down this constitution that is at the heart of everything that has gone wrong with this land. And blood is flowing all over the place, including the infrastructure that is in decay, including the electricity that's not there, including the refineries that are not in place. Everything, the corruption you care about, the impunity you shout. The lawyers in the land, and the men of God in the land who know, because we went to them, they know that this is falsehood competing with truth. They're on the side of falsehood. This is darkness competing with light. They're on the side of darkness. The men of God in the land, anybody who will not go to his podium and join like Desmond Tutu against apartheid South Africa's constitution, It's part of the problem. It's part of the darkness. It's part of the falsehood. All the bishops, all the men of God that campaign for people to go and get PVC, to vote in the election mandated by this constitution, are part of the darkness, are part of bearing false witness. They know that this whole thing is a scam intended to defraud people and steal money. They're interested in the private jet they will get. They're interested in the private university they will build. We went to them quietly to explain to them that this is what is tormenting the flock. They're not interested in how many people get killed. They are more interested in what they get when their candidates emerge as president or governor or senator. The men of God in the land, if you preach PVC in an election, we say let us do everything to avoid going to the election. Look at where we are now. Everything happening to everybody is because you took them to election. You refused to stand with the truth. You went with falsehood. You refused to stand with light. You went with darkness. And the flock is dying. We will come back to calling out your names. There's a dividing line now between those who stand with this constitution and those who oppose it in terms of wanting to terminate it. A choice must be made, and nobody can make it in silence, in wisdom of not talking. You must come out and be on the side of let us take down this fraud and go to transition now and go to rework the damaged constitutional basis of the defunct Federation of Nigeria. We stop here.
17.